So whenever we discuss about the Python, the first point that comes into our mind, or the point that should come into our mind, is that Python is unstructured. Unstructured means there is no need to follow any template such that. Okay. If first of all, if someone asks you that whether Python do support OOPS concept, your answer must be capital yes. Y-E-S is indeed Python do support class and OOPS. So they'll ask you this question. See, already you told Python is unstructured, but having a class means a structured. So what is it the difference? So basically Python can work as unstructured, or it will be unstructured by default. If you want to make a structure for this, that is where you can go for the class related topic. So that means you can, if needed, if the situation demands you to have a class, you can go it. It is not mandatory. That's what it is. So class is basically meant to have a structure. Okay. So structure means what? You will be using the data, you'll be accessing the data in some template. Template means there is some structure which is predefined. You have to make sure that make sure that the class comes up with that particular template. Okay. Generally, what is class? This is what we see from our engineering. Class is collection of objects or attributes or variable or function. Anything you can say. Just a collection. So what happened? Which is going to play a huge role? Class is not going to play any role. Class is just a template. Again, I'm telling, class is just a template for accessing. So what is going to huge role? What is going to play the huge role? Object. Object inside the class is going to play a huge role. Then what is object? Object is anything that occupies a certain memory. That's it. That's it. So class is a mere template where you're gonna play everything with the object only. See, in our college also, right? Who's gonna play the most of the role? Either the lecturer or the staff, and also the student. So these two are the one who's gonna play a huge role. But why we should go for a class? Why you are sitting inside a class? Because that is where you can learn everything in a uniformity. Correct? That is where you can learn in common. So that's why. So that's why they made a class, so that they are asking the object. Whose object? Students, staffs are the object. So the actual interaction, the actual role plays, the actual conversation happens between the staff and the student. But the classroom is just a template to assemble everyone. That's it, right? When somebody have to sit together to listen certain things, what you have to do? Go inside a class and listen. That's what class. To have the uniform, it's a kind of wrapper, I can say. Okay, class is kind of a template or wrapper. Wrapper means inside a wrapper you're gonna keep everything. It's a wrapper. Then if you ask me what is object, everything is object. If I'm sitting inside a class, if I'm a lecturer, I'm the object. Why object? I already mentioned in the basics of Python. Object is anything in Python that occupies a memory. So be clear. So object is anything in Python that occupies a memory, any memory. Okay, whatever that occupies a memory is called object. So class is the template, and whatever that you're gonna do is basically on your object only. Object is gonna play huge role. Okay, so look at this. Vehicle is a class, but vehicle is not gonna do anything. Which is gonna travel? You can travel with the car, you can travel with the bike. Same thing. Furniture. I'm just giving you the example. What is furniture? Do you see anything in the name of furniture? No. You can call table as a furniture, chair as a furniture, and so on. So similarly, class is just a template where object is the main product. Okay, that's it. What is OOPS concept? The way we want to organize our object to have a proper extensibility. This is what OOPS concept. Okay, OOPS is nothing but an object-oriented programming concept which is actually helping us in organizing the things of a class to have the extendability. The best feature of the class is extendability. That means if you declare anything, any variable inside a class, and if you try to have another class which is going to take same variable, there is no necessity for you to create a separate one. Instead, what you can do, you can just inherit the parent class and you can use whatever there in the parent. It's like if I want to get something from my parent, my dad, what I have to do? Just I have to get a help from him. Extend his future. For example, my dad is in the ground floor where he's having everything from food, milk, juices, and TV, everything. So now I'm gonna build home in the first floor. So now I cannot afford everything what my dad has separately. I cannot buy a chair, table, TV separately. I cannot buy a food. I cannot prepare a food. So what I can do, I can get a help from my father. What happens if I get help from my father? He can give his extension, correct? So if he prepares food, I can take some part of a food. If he watches TV, I can go and also watch it. This is what the extendability, okay, hierarchy, inheritance, whatever called. So in Python also we're gonna see OOPS concept. What are the OOPS concept? You know it, right? Same thing, whatever you see in other languages. Inheritance, polymorphism, access specifiers, data hiding, data encapsulation. So all the default, what to say, OOPS concept that you see in other language, you can also see in Python as well. Okay, this is what, right. As I was, mentioned in this particular slide, there are two kind of a class. One is bounded, another one is unbounded. Okay, what is bounded? The class without any constructor is called bounded. That is where we usually work during the older part of Python without a constructor. And currently, the concept or the point that everybody is seeing is a bounded one. Bounded one means using the constructor. So there are basically two ways you can use a class. One is with the constructor, another one is without a constructor. That is what I told, like bounded and unbounded. That is the actual difference. Okay. So first, how to define a class? First, you have to define this one, class. What was that? Then followed by class name, say my class, and it should end with the colon. Now if there is any variable, you can use it here. Variable is equal to Dhoni, and if there is any function, you can use that as well. Function of. So basically what happened, usually I'll be having the variable and function separately, unstructured, but I realized that this variable and this function can be accessed by some other class also. So just to make sure that I give the extendability, I have kept these two, this variable and function, inside my class. What is the class name? My class. So what I have to do now? I have to call this variable, I have to call the function. So this is where you have to use. If you want to print variable, where is the print now? Now the variable is inside your class. For example, if a person called Karthik, when he revolves or roams around the classroom, away from the classroom, I can easily call him and I can ask him to do anything. But if the same people call or the same person called Karthik sits inside a class, if he sits inside a class, obviously I have to get the permission of the class teacher to ask him to release him or to send him out, right? That's what. Now variable is not available in general, it is inside your classroom. So what you have to do, whenever you want to call the variable, you have to get the permission from the my class. So my class dot where, let me run. There you see it prints. And similarly, if you want to call the function, how to call the function? Using the class reference, my class dot function. That's it. There it is. It prints. So this is what we call it as unbounded. To be precise, the older mechanism of using a class concept. Now, The same thing can be used with a shortest notation. Instead of you calling the class all the time, you can use some object reference. Object reference means instead of you calling the my class all the time, you can use this kind of reference. It is my is nothing but a reference of my class. For example, if the person name is Karthikeyan, the bigger name I can call using Karthi. So what is Karthi? Karthi is nothing but a reference for the Karthikeyan. Same thing. What is my? My is a reference for the my class. So basically what is my here? It's an object. What is an object? Object is anything that occupies a memory. So here, so my object is basically my is an object reference for the class called my class. So what happened? Whenever it gets called, it will create a separate memory. My dot variable. So at line number, let me add a line number. So at line number 32, I mean line number 33, it will create one memory inside what memory? My memory. What is my? Class. So it will create a total memory of the class and then it uses variable. And again, if you use my dot function again, it will create another memory where it will execute only the function calling. So that's what it is. So my is nothing but an object reference. And every time you use the object reference, a separate instant of memory gets created. This point I want you to keep in your mind. It creates a separate instant of memory every time you use the my. This is what, or this is the way we usually do the calling. Okay, and let me store it here. Yes. Now if this function takes some argument, say name comma age. So what I have to do? I have to pass here Dhoni comma 33. You can use it here instead of welcome. You can use name age. There you see it prints, and a class can also have another function, something called details, and the detail needs only the name. Print name. So what you have to do? Again, you have to call another function called detail and you have to pass only the name. Now we already know, right? We should always match the number of arguments. Since detail takes only one argument, you should pass only one argument. Okay, this is what the unbounded mechanism that we seen in older ways, older Python. Okay, now what is the problem with this? I'll tell you that why we should not go or why people not stopped using unbounded mechanism. The first problem that I already discussed. What was that? Now at line number 48 is just an object reference. So whenever you use this object my, it will create a separate instance of a memory. So imagine if you have 100 function, then it will create 100 different memory for the 100 function. The more the memory, more the time it consumes and the efficiency will be less. And look at this. It has two functions. Fun is one function and detail is another function. Now what happened? At one point of a time, I realized I found out that line number 40 and line number 44 trying to take the same argument called name. But here what I have to do? I have to pass separately. I don't have any other option, right? I'm passing it separately. Imagine if you people are sitting inside my class, if my management gives some, they want to give some books to every student. So now here function and detail are kind of a student. So this name is something that management is trying to give you. So what the management is doing is that they are calling each and every student and they are giving the book. So what will happen? My class will be disturbed because they're calling each and every student just to give the book. Correct. And I know that it is common thing only. The book is a common thing to all my students. Okay. So this is the problem. Even though function and details trying to take the same argument, but since it is an unbounded mechanism, I have to pass it separately. That means the exact point, the bottom line is that no common data sharing. The data are not initialized commonly so that I can use it anywhere inside my, because both the function and detail are my class functions only. They are my attributes. So why I have to pass the data separately? I should have initialized all together in a single function. are in a single place. So the real-time example, right? Instead of management people giving the book to, I mean, books are material to the students straight away. They should have kept the books somewhere inside my class so that I can ask my student to come and collect. Same thing here. Instead of you passing the data separately, you should have kept the data in the common place so that people can come and use. So these two are the major problem. The instance of memory. That means it creates a separate memory every time you use my. And the point number two is that data are not commonly initialized. If it is since it is not commonly initialized, I have to take extra effort to send the data to the function separately. Obviously, time will take lot, right? There is a lot of time consumption. So now this is what the problem with the unbounded class mechanism. Unbounded class mechanism. Now we're going to convert this into a bounded one. Bounded means using constructor. Now this is where I want you to keep a little more concentration. Okay. Now I'm going to slowly change the same code. Okay. So that you people can understand. First what I did, I just put the parenthesis after my class name. So what does it mean? I am forming. Now my class is called constructor. So my class is called constructor because as a class teacher, he is the class teacher, right? As a class teacher, he is going to construct a data. Same thing. I told you, right? The management people tries to give the books and some materials to the student directly. But what I'm going to do, just to avoid the problem, I want to construct whatever that is needed for my class. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to construct something for my student. That's what happening here. So my class become a constructor. Okay. Whenever you create a constructor, there is an attribute that gets created. So now what happened? Init. So whenever you create a constructor, guys, by default, indirectly, there is one more attribute that is created. Why I'm telling attribute is that in Python, we already seen any name with double underscore on either side is called attributes. Any name with a double underscore on either side is called attribute. So init is an attribute. What is init? Init is kind of an attribute that gets created whenever I create a constructor. What is the usage of init? Init is basically used to initialize the data if there is anything that I can use for my class. That's it. These are the 3 points. Okay. Now, in previous case, what is this my? It is just an object reference. Just an object reference. So whenever you use, what will happen? It will create a separate memory. Look at that line number 71, line number 72, line number 73. It creates a 3 separate instance of memory. 3 instance. But whenever you create a constructor, that object that you use, now my is an object, which is called also called as reference. Object reference. Now this is single instance of object reference. So what happened? Whenever you create a constructor, that instant that is getting created, the object reference that is getting created is a single instance, only one memory. So now at line number 70, 71 and 72, it will run on only one memory. It will not create 3 different instances. It will create only one instance of a memory. That's the beauty of constructor. So whenever you form a constructor, you get an object reference, which I named it as my here, or you can keep it in a better understandable of my object. So my object is the reference for the class, right? Here it is not only the normal reference like you had in the unbounded. It is a single instant of memory. So hereafter, even if you call for 200, 300 number of times, it will create or it will run on a single memory only. It won't create a multiple memory. That's the point that I want you people to keep in mind. Single instead of a memory. Okay. So these four are very, very, very major point. Okay. So my class, what is in it, what is my reference. Okay. On top of this, okay. So these are the point I want you people to keep in mind. And another beautiful point is that whenever you create a constructor, there will be an hidden first argument gets created along. So now what happened at line number 65? This is empty constructor. Empty constructor means it has a parenthesis but nothing is inside as far as you think. But there is always one hidden argument. That's what I given at line number 7. Whenever you create a constructor, there will be some hidden argument that always gets created. Always at line number 70. Now there is one argument that got created. What is that argument? That is nothing but a memory reference for the internal class. See this at line number 65. What is my object? My object is a instead of some instance of a memory that is used for doing calling away from the class. So whenever you create a constructor, there is one hidden argument. Look at this. That means here there is one argument that is already created. That argument is nothing but another memory reference which is used for doing the internal operation. It is kind of sync. This is for external reference, and whatever that gets created here is called, or it is for the internal reference. So this is the 2 points that I want you people to keep in mind: external reference and also a internal reference. Fine. So it's just a variable, just to remove that. No need. What basically means, so this is, what is this? It is a reference of the my class. So if a my class has one hidden object created, so wherever you use the my object, the reference, that also have the hidden object. Now at line number 73, there will be 3 arguments. One which is hidden. If you ask me, sir, why it is hidden? Because you're trying to use my object. So my object is nothing but the instance of my class. My class has a structure that it creates one hidden object first. So whoever uses this class, they will have their one hidden object created. Fine. This is the point to be noted. So this will have one hidden object. Wherever you use my object reference, it will create one hidden argument. Always. What in hidden? Right. Now, what is the second problem that we discussed in unbounded? We're trying to pass the data specifically to the function. What happens when we pass specifically to the function? Waste of time. So first you have to remove that. Look at the changes. So a function is not going to take any argument. If that was the case, I should not pass here also. Same here. I'm not going to take data directly, so I have to avoid this as well. So that means I'm not going to pass directly. Okay, so I can, if I don't pass directly, print should not be as it is. That's it. Now I know that my function and my detail both need some argument to be passed. Correct. Function as well as detail needs some argument to be passed inside. What was an argument? Name. So both the function takes a name and only one function takes age. So what I have to do is that whatever the argument that I supposed to pass to my function, I have to keep that inside your print statement. I mean constructor. Look at this. Dhoni, 33. That means I'm trying to construct the data which is needed for my function. Well and good. So that means, like, instead of when management tries to give the books to my student directly, what I'm doing, I'm stopping them. I'm telling my management, don't pass any material to the student directly, give it to me. That's what happening at line number 64. Your class is trying to construct the data that is needed for your functions. So what happened now? As a class teacher, I'm trying to take Dhoni and 33. But imagine the real-time scenario. If I get the data from management, if I get the book from my management, I cannot distribute to you because I have already other works. So what I can do, I can just do the organization, right? I can make everything in a uniform way. So what I did, I taken the books materials from them. So what I have to do, now I have to give it to my student. Instead of me giving directly to my student, I'm gonna keep all these books, and for some student they may pass some calculator, or some student they may pass some other data. So whatever the management want to give, I'm not going to give directly to them. I'm going to keep it in one place so that people can go and collect them. It's like, right, I'm telling my student, look student, I already received all the materials that you want to get from the management. So I don't want management to give the book directly to you. So what I'm going to do, as a class teacher, I already got all the books or whatever that is needed for you, and I'm going to keep it in one place. So whoever want, they can come and access that. As simple as that. Imagine I'll be keeping those book in separate place, maybe in another desk. Now I can tell student, okay, so whoever want, they can come and access. So what I did, I received the data and I is commonly initialized. That's the point. So how to initialize this? That is where this init comes into the picture. There you see, it is double underscore init is inbuilt constructor because it is created while constructor, which is used for initializing. So what happened? What I have to do? I have to pass this argument back to the init, double underscore init. I have to pass Dhoni and 33 here so that it will keep that as an initialized one, and over one they can come and ask, right? So basically what these two act as a function. My class, it has two arguments, init has init. I have to pass these two data back to my init, but how many data are here? Don't tell me two guys, this is three. I already told in this point. Look at that line number 69. So whenever you create any class constructor, it will always have hidden object. So I have to pass these three, one which is already hidden, to my init, because we seen in function the number of argument in the definition should match the number of argument of your calling. But unfortunately here in your calling, we found that there are three number of arguments. So I should make sure that init gets the data in the same order. So first I have to name something. What is the name? I'm going to keep it as self. Why self? Just a name that I'm keeping for the hidden argument that got created inside the constructor. Then I can pass name comma age. So what happened? The hidden argument, which is called as the instant of memory for the internal operation, has been named as self here. So three argument, here also three argument that gets matched. So Dhoni will be stored in name and 33 will be stored in age. Then what you have to do? You have to make sure that you initialize that. This one, self dot a is equal to name, or you can keep self dot name itself, no issues. Self dot name and self dot age. So after receiving name and age from constructor, that means from 63, your line number 54, that initializer is actually initializing the data with the self. Why self? Self is nothing but a name that I have given for the memory that was created during the constructor. Why it is needed? To do the internal operation, I have to always keep the self in touch. I have to keep in touch of self because the operation that I have to execute should be worked based upon the self only. So self is the memory reference. Similarly to my object, my underscore object at line number 67 is an object reference for external calling. Similarly, self is for internal calling, as straightforward as it can. Okay. The only point to be noted here is that here the number of arguments should match the number of argument of the constructor. If somebody wondering that in init at line number 53 I have 3 argument, but line number 67 I have only 2 argument. Again I'm repeating, this is not 2 argument. Whenever you create a constructor, there will be one argument which will be always gets created. So that's what it is. So there are 3 argument at line number 67 and also there are 3 argument at line number 54. These are the 2 points that I want you people to keep in mind always. So whenever you execute a program, this needs to be at your utmost priority. Okay. Now since this function I also told, right, this also has some hidden argument. So you have to pass the same reference here, self. Why? Because it is already having one argument, so you have to match the number of argument. So if it is having one argument, now it is also having one argument, it is matched. Now what is function? It may need both arguments. So what it can do, it can use self dot a comma self dot h. That's it. Now if it needs only name, it can use name only. So what is the beauty here? I'm taking a lesser effort. I'm taking a lesser effort in passing the data because I'm not passing separately to the function. Instead, I'm declaring both the function in a generic place so that whoever want to access, they can come and access it. There is no necessity for them to come and wait for me to pass the data. This is how it works. So basically what the self means, self is the object referent that gets created during constructor formation. Okay, so each and every function should use the reference object as their first argument. Okay, so what is init? Init is instant. It is gonna initialize the instant that is created. So this can also be called as instantiator. Init can also be called as instantiator. So that is the point. So if you run, output is going to remain the same like unbounded. Output is same like unbounded only, but the way we made the code was elegant, precise, short, and lesser memory. This is what we do call it as constructor. This is what we call it as bounded mechanism. Bounded means you are trying to do anything based upon a specific object reference. That means you're bounded, depends. So that's why it is called as bounded class mechanism. So this is what the basic constructor look like. These are the things that I want you people to make a note. Okay. I'm trying to check, is there everything fulfilled? Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Ready. Everything is available. Right. Let me now show you certain drawbacks and how you can avoid that. The first drawback is that now no need of explanation because we already given that. Let me keep it simple with tested data as an argument. Right. So here what happened, this self.age is only needed for the function alone. But what is the problem when you declare it initial like globally? Even this detail can access this age. Okay. If the situation needs in such a way that a certain argument should only passed on to the specific function, not as a global data. You can do that as well. What you can do? Look at this. I don't want age to be initialized globally, so I can remove age here. So to self.age. So to here. So age alone, I can get it specifically through that particular function. Look at this. That's it. Now, how many arguments are here? Two arguments. One is the self, another is 33. So now what happened? You can use age here. That's it. Oh, you have to remove this as well because age is not accepted, right? There is. It works perfectly. So you can use that also. If you use the age here, it won't work. Look at this. Age is not defined because this specific age is given only for your second function. Okay, this also possible. So that's what I'm telling it, right? So based upon the need, based upon the situation, based upon the scenario, you can formulate or you can create your own class constructor. This is one point. Now what I did kept as a self. So if you ask me, sir, is that necessary that I have to keep only self? Not at all. You can keep any name. Dhoni. Why? Because see, you're gonna just a name. You're gonna just give a name for the reference that is getting created here. That's it, right? It is nothing to do with anything. It just this Dhoni is nothing but just a reference. So we already have Dhoni. Let me keep it as KOL. Kohli. So now this what is Kohli? Kohli is nothing but an object reference for the one which is created here. So what you have to do? You have to use Kohli here. That's it. Because in certain books I see they dilute people with giving a wrong explanation. Like they usually tell that self is object reference and you have to always use self. Self is something like in a custom that we always follow that mechanism protocol, but it's not the standard way. You can use any name of your wish, right? Now you kept Kohli here. If you ask me, sir, do I need to use Kohli here? No need. Hello, hello. Look at this. Still it works. So what does it mean? You can keep any reference as per your wish. It doesn't necessary that you have to follow the same reference in all the functions. You can have separate reference here also. Hi, hi. There you see it works fine. So whenever you want to call a this is function. So what is this? This is one hidden object. So you're using Kohli. And this is one function. This is one hidden object. So I'm using hello. And this is one hidden object. I'm using hi. So object reference name for your internal no manipulation is of your wish. You can use however you want to use. Now let me take you to few more scenarios. Welcome and hello. So what happened? This okay. So I'm going to teach you something. So now what happened? Both my function doesn't need any argument. So what I have to do? Remove this. Remove this. So now I need to pass and no argument. So here also no argument. This is also not needed. Right. Now the question is that since this specific class scenario doesn't need any external data. So is it necessary that I have to keep init here? Not at all needed. Init is specifically, or you have to mention it when there is a need for you to do the initialization. Okay. If there is no need to mention init here. It's just a direct calling. But look at this. It says function takes 0 argument, but 1 were given. Why 0 argument? Here, I told you, right, whenever you create a constructor, there will be always one object gets created. So even though you're not initializing any init here, still you have to use some reference, any reference. Say py. Now it will work. So that is the point. So even though you are not using init, why you are not using init? In this specific scenario, there is no need of any external data initialization. So you are removed init. It doesn't mean that you can run the function as it is like unbounded. You have to use some reference. So it means it doesn't mean that init is not created. Guys, whenever you create a constructor, the point is that init will be always created. Always gets created. The only difference is that whenever you want to use, you will be externally using it. If not, what happens? Internally, init will be created. That is the point. Okay. So you can still have a init if you want. You can have empty init also. Some self. That's it. And now when I run the code, it throws error. Why error? We already discussed using during the if statement, while statement function. So whenever you put a colon, after that there should be some data you should always give. So since I don't have any data, I can simply give pass. Why I given a pass here? Because in this specific code, I don't want any data to be passed here. Nothing. So what does it mean? So whenever you put a colon, at least some argument should be there. At least some data should be there. If you know that there is no data necessarily need to be defined, at least give the pass. Pass. What does it mean by pass? Pass means go to the next available statement. Next available executable statement. So pass means it will move to the next executable statement. There you see. Okay. Fine. So these are the various points that I want you people to keep in mind whenever you do execution of a constructor. Okay, so we're going to see the hoops and other stuff later that I'm going to discuss in detail. Okay, but as of now, that is not necessarily needed. Okay. Okay, so these are the point you need to be very careful of. All right. Now let us discuss few things that I want you to always follow whenever you write a class. Okay, so imagine we would have used lot of functions till now. Insert, delete, append, pop items, lot of functions. Do you know how the functions are defined inside a Python? Definitely no. Correct. Same thing that can happen to you as well. That means in Python at times you may only do the calling like 162, 163, 164 kind of stuff. The main Python code might be in some other server where that means basically the point that I'm trying to tell is that you may not know what was the definition is all about. Okay, you may not know the definition. You may not know the definition, but still you can access, you can do the calling. So on the curiosity front, or as a better part of anyone who uses the function, they should know what is the class is all about, how the class is defined, is there any function, what are the argument type, and what needs to be given. Okay, so what that you people have to always follow is that whenever you create a constructor as a developer, you should always create a document string. It's like when you go for a colleges, when you create a project, what is the next step that you do? What is the next obvious thing that you do? You create a document which is actually replicating or reflecting the project that you did. Same thing. In class also, you have to follow some document string mechanism. How do you write a document string? inside a class with these triple codes, whatever you write, that will become a document string. So this, you can follow any template. Author, say Mohan. Any template. Something. So some history about the class. So you might be wondering, sir, what is the purpose if I do this document string? Do I need to use or am I going to use all this stuff? Yes. How? During your calling. I'll tell you this. Look at this. Print. You have to use the same object reference. My object dot double underscore doc double underscore. So what this doc is going to tell you, it is going to give you the detailed document string if it is mentioned on your class. So when you run, there you see it prints the document string as well. That's the beauty of things. So what happens if somebody acts a document string different inside the class, you can still call that. You can still use that. Okay, that's what document string. So you should always have the practice, because imagine you might be writing one program at 2021. Okay, and this program might be used by some other till 2025. You would have leave the company by any chance. So when somebody comes and access this program, they should know at least the history of it. Why this class is defined, what is the function, some detail about the class. So that way, right? I always ask people to use this kind of a document string. Always. So right now, even in interview, right, when they ask you to write a class program, you always start with the document string. You should do with a proper, intention, so that the interviewer will get impressed that yes, this guy does everything on a structured way. And why we should go for a class? To have that extendability. Okay, that extendability can be achieved by implementing a oops concept that we're gonna see in our upcoming videos. Okay, oops concept.